Before we even get started, let's be clear about what this video is for. This video is designed for people that are thinking about running ads, specifically thinking about hiring an agency to run those ads for them to whatever website, product, service, experience, doesn't matter. Whatever you're planning on doing. If you're planning on running ads and you haven't done it before or you're new and green to it, stick around. This video has got everything that I wish I would have known prior to getting into that. And so hopefully what the result of this is going to be is it's going to help you to understand a little bit more about how that process works. Some of the things that everybody pitches through all your scrolling on Instagram when you see every other ad comes from an agency owner that tells you how they've got the secret formula to adding more customers faster for lower cost, when in reality, a lot of it's just the same thing. I also want you to be able to save a lot of the money that I spent on your behalf doing dumb things that you won't have to do because guess what? I already did them and I'm going to share them with you here in this video. And then finally, I want to give you a good path. I want to show you the direction that if I were going to start again, I would go back and I would do it this way. Just so you know that this is coming from a place of experience, I'm going to show you my ads manager right now. You can see here I have spent indeed over $330,000 in the last 12 months driving Facebook and Instagram traffic to web pages. And I've learned a lot of hard lessons inside of this. I made more than the 332, but not like a dramatic amount more. Most of the time, people will talk about ROAS, which is return on ad spend. That's a big agency word. They're going to be talking a lot about that. You might have even seen some other videos that are about ROAS. That's the thing that we think about. It's the amount that you put in versus the amount that you get back. So if you put $1 into Facebook or Instagram advertising, your ROAS would be whatever return you got on that investment, which will come as some sort of a fraction. You might see a lot of like 1.2s, or you might see a lot of 0.76s. If you get into the twos, like 2.04, that means that you put $1 in and you get $2.04 back for every dollar that you put in. ROAS is a massive, massive thing. I didn't get to the twos. I actually wound up being south of that. And because of that, it was a very expensive lesson to learn. And that's the first lesson that you've got to get inside of this video here, which is that you've got to be able to speak the language that the agencies speak. If you're going to run ads, they're going to be using a lot of terminology, things like conversions. I remember the very first agency I ever hired was for an apparel company that I had started, and they were talking about all these conversions that were happening from their ads. And I'm looking at my bank account thinking like, I don't see anybody converting the way that I think. But as it turns out, inside of the Facebook Ads Manager, which is the same thing as the Instagram Ads Manager because it's all owned by Meta, there are 13 different possibilities for conversion. You could be driving traffic to convert to watch a video. You could be driving traffic to convert to opt into a page and give you their email address. You could be converting by getting a landing page view of whatever product that you're trying to sell. Those are all things that are conversions. And if you don't understand the language, your ad agency is going to be telling you that it's converting, and you'll probably be in the same spot I was where you're confused by what exactly does that mean, because there isn't money inside of my bank account. But there's a number of different things that we've got to understand, like CPM, which is the cost per 1,000 views that you get on a particular piece of content that you put out there. We need to understand our CTR, which is the click-through rate, the number of people that see it, that ultimately click through to see whatever we're driving them towards, whatever web page or whatever form or whatever video you're driving them towards. There's all these different terms that you need to know. In order to really understand the terms, how I did it was I went through and thought, you know what? Facebook has this ad platform, and chances are they will tell me about all the different things I need to know. And so Facebook's actually got a tutorial that shows you exactly what all these terms mean. It's called The Blueprint, and it's a free course. Anybody can take it. I signed in, I took it, and I want to say that it was about 30 hours worth of content. So pack a lunch because it is a time investment. But what I've found for me, and I hope you find this the same for you, is that if you have that investment of time in understanding the language, then it will save you money in the long run. It'll save you hassle in the long run because you'll be able to talk back and forth with your agency a lot more clearly, a lot more concisely, and you guys will all be on the same page. And if you're still resistant to this idea, picture going to Spain without speaking a word of Spanish. It's really, really clunky. You might be able to find your way around, but chances are you're going to be spending most of the time completely lost and not knowing where to go. So, lesson number one, hard fought, hard earned lesson number one is speak the language of advertising before you start spending a lot of money on it. The second thing that I wish somebody would have told me prior to going in and running a lot of ads is that optics are everything. Optics is your ability to see into the ad campaign and trace from one step to the next step to the next step. So if you've got an ad that clicks through to a landing page, that clicks through to a sales page, that clicks through to, say, an application, which is what I was doing, understanding what's happening on each one of those and the drop-off rate of people who see the ad but don't click on it, people who click on the ad but don't do anything when they get to the page, versus people who get to the page and then go through versus those that don't, and then people that ultimately go all the way through with the process. Understanding each one of those helps you understand what's broken, because so much of ads is about mindset. It's not, I'm going to put money in and I'm instantly going to get money back out. The key thing and the mindset shift that I had to make was that you're buying data no matter what. People are telling you what works by buying your product, your service, or your experience, or they're telling you what doesn't work when they don't click through, or they don't opt in, or they don't view a sales page, or they don't buy, or they don't apply, or whatever action you're trying to get them to do. Not knowing why they're not doing that or where they're not doing that is the kiss of death for all of your money, just to go to Zuckerberg and make him even more rich than he already is. So you've got to understand your optics. Set up an optical dashboard. That's your second call to action thing that you need to do. Set up an optical dashboard that sequentially shows your process, your ad, and all the metrics that are going with your ad, like I talked about before, the click-through rate, the CPM, the engagement if it's doing a video ad. Then it's to the landing page. How many people viewed the landing page versus how many people took the action you wanted them to take, which is getting to the sales page. And then the sales page, how many people took that action versus didn't take that action. Understand the actions people are taking on your site and then work it backwards. First thing we've got to do is we've got to make sure that we've got our ads working. How do we know our ads are working? Because the click-through rate's acceptable. Once you've got a benchmark set for that, we've got a good click-through rate, then you go and you move on to the next step, which is what's a good opt-in rate? Once we've got a good benchmark performing at that, then we move on to the sales page. We can't make changes to every single step in the process every single time because that won't tell us if what we're fixing is ultimately the thing that needs to be fixed in order to get more people to buy the stuff. So get clear on your optics. You're going to do that by building an optical dashboard that's just got all your metrics. I want you to track this every single week. That's when I wish I would have tracked it. If I could have tracked this every week, then it would have been a different story for me at the start. I wouldn't have lost so much money at the start because I would have been able to make changes a lot faster and ultimately get myself to a spot where it made more sense in terms of how I was spending my ads and what I was doing to try to improve performance. The third super hard fought lesson was what the creative needs to look like. And the creative is the image that you put in an ad or the video that you put in an ad. That's the creative element to this. And what I found was that when I went to a lot of agencies, they would say, well, if you want to come in here and you want your fee to be X, which is typically the lowest price fee. Most agencies you're going to find somewhere between $2,500 and $5,000 a month on the low end in order to run ads for you. At least that's what I found, and I interviewed quite a few agencies. So chances are that's pretty much the range that you're going to be looking at. And even inside of that, they're going to tell you that you need to do your own creative, meaning you need to shoot your own videos and edit them. You need to take your own pictures and upload those. You need to write your own headlines. You need to write your own copy, which also is included inside of the creative. And what I first started out doing was I thought, what do I want the customer experience to be like? And I wanted a really high level of customer experience. And to me, I equated that with a really high quality video that I would put out. And so I went and I put together like a really well produced video. I had a videographer, I had lighting, we had everything that I would want inside of this thing. And it bombed. It completely bombed. And then what I decided to do was I decided to run another test, which would be to just get out my iPhone and record straight into the camera here and make it look more like native content. Because when you scroll through Facebook or Instagram and you see content, what you find is that It's just people that are talking into their phones. If it's your friends or somebody that you follow or pay attention to, most of the time they're just talking into their phones as well. And so by making the content look native rather than highly produced, at least what I found was I got a higher click-through rate and a higher watch rate on my videos because it looked like native content. People didn't yet think, oh, this person's selling to me. They thought, you know what, that guy looks like somebody I know. Is that my friend? And by that point, they're already watching the video, so they might as well stay for a couple more seconds, which is all I was really trying to get them to do. So in this, what I want you to do, and what I wish I would have done, was I wish I would have created more content at the start from an ad perspective that was native looking, just into my iPhone. Images not shot by a photographer, just me doing something that looks kind of weird. Or video straight from my iPhone that would make it look like it was just somebody else sharing some information inside of Facebook. The fourth thing is probably the hardest thing for me, at least, to do, and maybe you as you start to think about even running ads, which is don't let it intimidate you. See, I was intimidated by the idea of how to run ads. I'd never done it before, and the ads manager looked really complicated, and I couldn't think of like, oh, what am I going to do about this whole thing? And I let it overwhelm me, and because I let it overwhelm me, my instant answer was, I got to pay somebody to go do this. And rationally in my mind, I thought, the more that I pay somebody, the better that they're going to be. It's the same idea where if you buy a Honda or you buy a Ferrari, in theory, the Ferrari is going to be better than the Honda, or at least make you look better. And so I hired expensive ad agencies to do work that was really, really, looking back on it now, simple and easy to execute as long as you're willing to put the time into it. Earlier in this video, I mentioned the Facebook blueprint, or now the Meta blueprint. That is all the things that they tell you in terms of like, here's how to run ads. All that information is readily available and it's free if you're willing to put in the time to learn how to do it. As I mentioned, it took me about 30 hours to go through all of the coursework when I went through the coursework. But if you just set aside a few hours a week, you'll wind up getting through it in several weeks and you'll wind up saving thousands of dollars that you otherwise would have spent on an agency to do the exact same thing that you were doing. And the other thing that I found was that when I would get in with these agencies, they would typically be bigger, right? There was people that had been established because that's what I wanted. I wanted somebody with experience that had done this before. But you're not getting the person with the direct experience. What you're ultimately getting, at least for me, was getting the lower level people that maybe just started or had been there for 3 weeks or were just getting their feet wet in how to run these ads rather than the people that actually executed the past campaigns to pull this thing off. So my advice for you, and the fourth call to action here, is set aside time to learn how to run ads yourself and run ads yourself for at least 90 days before you hire an agency to do it. Now, the reason for that is that when you know and you're clear on how to run ads, you're reducing your risk because you're not spending on the agency. But two, once the agency comes into play, theoretically, you'll have some scale to your ads and you'll understand the language that they're speaking, back from tip number one, and be able to execute at a lot faster rate simply because you've already done your own work. It's the same thing inside of any business. You do all of the jobs first when it's just you before you start hiring out other people to help you with your work. It's the same exact principle. It helps you in the long run to understand how to run your own ads, and it's a minimal investment of time to be able to do just that. You cool with the bonus? Because I got a fifth thing that I think worked really, really well for me. And if you've been watching the video this long, you might as well get something else out of it. So here's a great strategy that I used when I was on a really, really small budget. And I'm talking less than $100 a day to build up an audience. And how I ended up doing this was I would post a video. And this would just be a 30-second video talking about whatever topic I wanted to talk about. And I would target an ad towards through plays. Through plays on Facebook and Instagram or anything over 15 seconds. And 15 seconds in Instagram or Facebook time is like an eternity. The average person spends 1.7 seconds on a post. So if they spent 15 seconds watching something that I put together, that told me that their intent was really high. I would run those ads for 14 days, and then what I would do is I would take the people who watched at least 15 seconds of that video and create a new audience with those people and run a targeted ad that was getting them to click off of Facebook to go to my website. Now, here's the deal with that. Facebook wants people on their platform, so they're going to give you video views really, really cheaply, and they're going to have people that go to those things that will, in theory, watch it for over 15 seconds if you produce a good piece of content. Remember, native works best inside of the Facebook game that I have found. And once those people watch it, now you're going to have a smaller group of people that are already interested in you, your product, your service, your experience, whatever, that you put into an audience that you're now going to spend on the more expensive ads, which are getting people to go to your website to actually engage with you in one way, shape, or form. That's by far the least expensive way to narrow down your audience and ultimately get them to a spot where they want to get into your site and start engaging with you in a different way. Whether they buy or not, that's going to be up to your website, which is a subject of an entirely different video that we can put together. But this is everything that I wish I would have learned in running Facebook ads when I first started doing this. I spent a lot of money that I didn't need to spend. When you implement the things that I have told you in this video, which are now 5 things, not just 4 things, you will end up doing better than I did because I didn't have any of those ideas when I first got into the game. So if you wish to run ads, and you wish to get your business up to the spot where you can predictably and reliably produce leads and customers, ads is the only way to do that. But you've got to follow through, understand the language of it first. Get your optics on point. Recognize that it's not that hard. And I gave you that little simple tactic on how to run video views to a new audience to ultimately get them to click over. So hopefully all of those things helped you. And hopefully those things teed you up for the next video, which is going to be running right now. Click on it and all the way. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. Also hit the bell icon. Make sure you're notified every time you got a new video up here for you.